everyone. Welcome to Living La Vita Local Podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And I'm Rich. I don't know why I said it like that. Sorry.
It's okay. I like it when there's like a strange inflection on it. I like a freak out. And we have a guest this week, a returning guest, which is lovely. One of our very good friends, Paddy Gunn, is ringing in all the way from Switzerland. Woo. So, hi, Paddy. Thank you for coming on.
Hello. Very welcome and happy to be here.
Paddy is the host of the Swiss Football Podcast, which has been on a short Swiss football break. And also the
is that
Swiss
different to a normal break?
Yeah, I imagine it's way more relaxing. And there's better scenery.
Yeah, apparently short in Switzerland means a hell of a long time.
Yeah. And Swiss Stadia, is it Stadia or Stadia? Stadia, I would say. Swiss Stadia Instagram and socials handle for all the Swiss Stadia that you have visited. Has that been on a bit of a hiatus as well?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is down to, and Faz, I know you'll probably appreciate this, is down to having a young son. He's 17 months old now, and the chances of getting out to visit stadiums, be there a game or not, is pretty rare, to be completely honest. So yeah, that's taken a bit of a dive as well. I mean,
I would have probably put my mortgage on that being the symptom. like before you even started speaking, it's just like, like whenever like you have to feed another, I guess human being who is your responsibility, and make them feel loved and things. It's kind of like you have to stop doing things that you like doing, and that's why Rich has to house me every 2 weeks to do podcasting for my own mental sanity.
I will say on more than one occasion, because I've got to give her a shout out. My wife Franzi, who you both know very well, has like specifically organised trips to football matches for me, kind of behind my back, as like little kind of like, right, go on, get out of the house, go and watch football somewhere random in Switzerland.
Lovely,
and, learn about the stadium.
Franzi.
Well done, Franzi.
So you're starting the podcast back up again, because it was in a 15-minute iteration, wasn't it? And that, I guess you were trying to do that as a short thing for a weekly, and that hasn't quite worked out the way. So you're doing a monthly version now.
Yeah, that's the plan. I very recently released kind of like a special episode where I kind of looked back on the season that had just gone, and I spoke about the England-Switzerland game that was coming up in the Euros. And yeah, I laid out the idea that, my whole plan was I'm going to do this once a week, but because it's 15 minutes, it should be really manageable. And it turns out that it's not. Even for 15 minutes, the amount of planning and writing and editing and recording that went into it, took a hell of a long time. And once my work started up again, and with Kit getting older and needing more and more attention and just having less time altogether, it had to go on the shelf. But I'm hoping that by doing a monthly one and kind of talking about things a little bit more generally and not so specific, might be able to kind of get off the ground again. Yeah,
no, it's cool. I listened to the special, and it definitely got me in the mood for the Euros a bit more, even though we were quite deep into it as it was. Having the England-Switzerland preview part of it, I was like, I feel actually I've been watching the Euros, but I don't think I've been informed about the Euros until now.
I've been present, but I've not really engaged in it.
And, of course, trust us to leave it till the day after the Euros to bring on the most knowledgeable person we know about football to get you to speak about golf.
What was it you were saying about planning things?
Yeah, our planning shit.
I mean, to be completely honest, my thoughts on England's performance yesterday were they're not massively long, and not a lot of them are broadcastable. So
no, that's fair enough. Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way. And I also feel a weird way today as well. You guys will have to deal with the my first day of my unsustainable crash diet that I'm on. So Paddy, you've already been through this. I don't know if you remember or not, but like when we worked together at Marks and Spencer's, I tried doing that, the 5-2 fasting diet.
Oh yeah.
And and it worked pretty well actually. It is like, it is like I feel a bit like is it what's that, the stabby robot off Futurama called? Is it Roberto or something? You know, it's like I feel a bit, with coupled with the Monster Energy that I'm currently zero sugar Monster Energy that
Fantastic.
I'm drinking.
Yeah, this is great.
So you guys are gonna have.
I am feeling so cornered right now.
Yeah. Hey, Red. So I feel a bit on edge after the Euros last night, and then that part, coupled with it wasn't a great pairing. Planning again being a sore point. But golf then.
How about them golfs?
How about those golfs? The relaxing part of the, it definitely feels like I try and put as much sport on my plate. So when things do go wrong, when, the chicken is off, such as the England performance, then there's still something else to snack on across the way.
The sporting buffet.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that you guys are very much the same in terms of having, a couple of different sports. But in terms of golf, then I know, Paddy, I speak to you, every so often about golf, and we've talked about it before and stuff. And video game golf as well. So excited to sort of do that tonight. And Rich, do you dabble at all in any?
Oh God, no. No. For me, like when we were growing up, like golf was like weirdly unobtainable. Like all of the courses and
the
stuff
concept
were, like,
of
well, they were really expensive round our way. Like if you had golf clubs, they'd be the sort of thing you'd be selling to make rent if you needed to and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like the closest I ever really got to it was like mini golf if you're at the coast, or like one time I bought like a driver or something at a car boot sale and went down the wreck with my dad. I think maybe we went once or twice, and I can't remember if we were told off and told not to do it, or if we were crap at it, or both. But either way, it didn't last long.
Hey, you crumb bum, stop doing the golf on the wreck.
Yeah, and my favourite golfing memory was getting a hole-in-one at a coastal like mini golf thing where it had to go over like a cliff. And it was a proper, like, no look. I just swung, and it just bounced off a rock, and I somehow got a hole-in-one. And it was like, right, well, I've peaked. Like, I may as well not bother at all anymore.
I'm hanging up my putter.
Yeah, exactly. I ended on a high. And as a spectator sport, like, I've given it little more than a passing glance, really, because there's just something... And I was trying to work out how I was going to explain this earlier on today, and I don't think I've come up with a good way of doing it, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Like when I'm watching football or American football or something like that, I like to get that sense of context and knowing what that little play or that bit of action or whatever is contributing to the game and how it's all changing. And I did try watching a little bit of golf when I was on holiday just to test this kind of theory. And the way it was all edited together, it was like, well, this guy's doing this shot now, and now this guy's doing a different shot in a different place about half a mile away.
Yeah.
And this guy's over here now. And this guy, has he lost a ball? He's lost a ball. And, it's things like that. And it feels oddly disconnected. And obviously, I know it is all part of the same thing. Of course it is. But yeah, I've just never quite been able to gel with it.
Paddy, how about you? Playing or viewing or loving or liking or ambivalence towards golf? Or
No, so I've had a very, very long relationship with golf, being that my dad is a golf fanatic, and he at this point now plays golf at least a couple of times a week, I'm sure, as he's kind of heading more towards retirement and has himself with a bit more free time. But he played golf a lot as I was growing up as well. And I remember many, many times, probably looking back on it, probably because my mum was probably doing something else at the same time, and my dad was told that he had to take me along, that I would go and caddy for him around Horsforth Golf Club. Kind of looking forward to my Lucozade and chocolate bar on the 9th hole that I was kind of saving for that being the ultimate point of excitement during the day. But through my dad, I played a bit, so I did a lot of kind of training sessions at the golf club. As a junior, I watched a lot because my dad would watch it as well. I hated watching it as a kid. Absolutely hated watching golf. I could not understand why anybody would be interested in actually watching it. Then I started betting on it, and it suddenly became a hell of a lot clearer as to why I don't really enjoy watching golf.
Yeah.
So Rich, to be fair, on your point, throw a bit of money on it. It gets a hell of a lot more.
I was going to say that's where I've gone wrong.
And
there's your context, baby.
There it is.
And you'd be surprised. So at the moment, the DP World Tour, like as in whatever that means to fucking anybody, like as in like they're in the middle of the European swing. So and Paddy will know this because I text him about it. Like so that he will know it's on his phone. But like I at the moment I'm regularly, people always like you don't want to shy away from your gambling. That is in I've got a very good set amount of how much I can spend on my Paddy Power account every week. It's like £15. It's very minimal, like as in. But all my betting money goes on golf right now, like as in. Right. So, and again, twofold really, as Paddy says, like as in it increases. Like I've found myself okay at it at the moment. Although Pete, who you know, Paddy, through playing football with him, would disagree. He's always like chastising me and saying I'm shit at it. But it seems to be the only thing I get a return on from my gambling.
Really? Yeah,
and it definitely does increase the enjoyment of golf,
so
infinitely.
So indulge me a second then. Mm-hmm. So like when it comes to football or whatever, I can, I've got a reasonably good grasp of what you would bet on as part of it. So when it comes to golf, is it as straightforward as this person will win?
The man or the woman?
Is that it?
Yeah, no. I mean, for me, and Paddy, you can obviously chime in as well, as in, I think that, so you can get really good each way odds on, and if you've got any sort of, it's not even necessarily a system or anything like that, but if you, I think, have any passing interest in even just looking up some stats and saying, oh, this player, they've played well over the last 6 months, they've, finished top 20s here and there, this type of golf course under these conditions, and then maybe they are German and they're playing in Belgium, for example, so that's like a home from home sort of situation. And there are a lot of trends in golf that you wouldn't think necessarily if you don't dip into it much. And it's not easy. But for example, the Scottish Open's just finished yesterday, and ironically, like literally 1 minute before England kicked off in the Euros, there's a Scottish winner in the Scottish Open, and he was like celebrating. And I was like, oh, I feel pretty excited for this guy. He's like Bob McIntyre. It's like this is a great moment. And then I turned England on. I was like, oh fucking hell.
Am I Scottish yet?
But I had the excitement and the high of watching the last hour of the golf yesterday going into the first 45 minutes of that game yesterday, which was the football game, which was dire. But yeah, so I had like 3 players on, and two had kind of fallen by the wayside. But Aaron Rye, who's an Englishman, he plays in the States, but he's won the Scottish Open before, and he's kind of shown a bit of a liking for the type of course it is.
Right.
So, and he's playing really well in the States at the moment, and he was 40-1, and I was a bit like, and you got 8 places, and I was like, I'll put £2.50 each way on him, and actually he was up there-ish, and he kind of fell away a little bit, and then yesterday had a really good round, and he finished like 4th. He was never going to win yesterday, but it was enough for me to get like 25 quid back, and it was like, all right. So, and the Open Championship's on this week, which is one of the 4 majors of golf, and my favourite to watch. I'll just put that money back on to bet on people this week. It's never really like a losey situation. It doesn't feel that way, but it clearly is, because Paddy Power definitely have my money somewhere.
So, seeing as I've completely exposed how little I know about golf, when you have like a major and stuff like that, and it's played over however many days, they are just doing basically laps of the course then?
Yeah, effectively, right. Yes.
Yeah, on the whole, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they play, typically in most tournaments, it's 4 rounds. So 4 rounds, 18 rounds.
Okay, right.
And then usually after the first 2 rounds, there'll be a cut point where the people who are playing shit get cut. Yeah,
right.
So you don't have to watch them and they can go home. But yeah, so
just to be clear, Rich, it not cut as in the stabby robot from Futurama.
Yeah.
Take that, Caddy! So yeah, Paddy, I don't know if you were weighing on that at all or anything. I don't know if you got any more points on gambling and golf.
No. I think it kind of added on to what I was saying pretty well. I think that with golf, I think if you're going to watch it fairly regularly, and I don't watch it a lot. I when the kind of more interesting tournaments rock around, where I know the bigger players are going to be there, I'll stick it on. I suppose it's a little bit kind of Formula One-ish in the sense that you tend to pick up a little bit more on individuals. You find kind of personalities and players that you like, so you're interested to see how they do. But yeah, like Fazz said, if you are going to kind of throw money on it, or if you're going to pay attention to it a little bit more, you kind of have to delve into who's kind of on a hot streak at the moment. Who's playing well, because that has such a massive impact on golf. If your head's not in the right space, or the shots just aren't working for you, or the clubs aren't working for you, whatever it is, like it can be. It's just those kind of minimal differences between having an absolutely great round and an absolutely honking round. I mean, I play a little bit now. I've started picking up my clubs again since moving to Switzerland, actually, because we're quite close to a golf course where we are.
Because it's
so I've been able to go out and play a little bit more. And it's one of those things where you watch it and you think like, yeah, that seems like a pretty standard bodily function that I could do.
How hard could it be?
But when you
yourself.
stood there with a club in your hands and you're looking down at the ball, and all of a sudden the mechanics of your body seem to not make sense to you anymore. Like it's like, well, how the hell do I get this back to the point at which it came from? And then as soon as you think you figured it out, you start slicing and hooking balls absolutely everywhere. So it's I don't know how anybody has the patience to become a professional golfer. Put it that way. I genuinely could not spend enough time trying to. I mean, I was going to say perfect my swing, but even get it to a reasonable standard seems almost impossible.
Yeah, it seems like they do. The difference between a top tier golfer who is on tour compared to the next 10 tiers down, just like in any sport, really.
When you stop being elite.
You think, when you watch on television, you think it just happens, and it most definitely does not. And golf is very physical and also very mental at the same time, which I'm sure all sports are, but very much so. I think what Paddy was saying there is like you can just have an amazing round, the next day you can have an absolute stinker, and there could be no difference in your bodily features of what you've done or anything. It can be completely in your head, or it can just be one thing's off, like your pinky hurts or something like that.
Well, that's the thing, because I'm glad you kind of mentioned the physical side of it, because it's genuinely not something, as somebody that has never really gone anywhere near golf, really. It's one of those
guy
things.
In the wreck scared you off.
Well, it's never really occurred to me. I've never really appreciated it, but you're both right, because like you are swinging this stick to hit this tiny ball, and then somehow you're able to hit a target however far away in, like, I don't know, call it high wind potentially or whatever, like all that kind of stuff, and yet you are somehow able to have that finer control over your movement and all that to actually make it happen. I've never really appreciated it like that.
Oh, sorry, go on, Paddy.
No, I was just going to kind of finish my point was I think that once you've kind of played a round of golf, like you've gone round a golf course. I mean, the driving range is kind of good enough to realize this as well. But if you go and play an 18-hole round of golf, and you see what goes into getting that ball to the point where you can put it into that little hole, you then really start to appreciate like the insanity of some of these guys, like how good they are. It makes so little sense to be as consistent as they are at hitting that ball with that stick. It's absolutely nuts.
And if you look at as well the physicality side of things now, like, I mean, not saying that Tiger Woods single-handedly changed how golf was or anything, but all of a sudden, like in the late 90s, you started getting players who were, in the gym constantly and just becoming these machines. 100%. And even now, that is in, like an average drive 20 years ago probably would have been like 280 yards. It's like, for the best players, it's like 350 now. It's like, it's huge. And, you look at someone like Bryson DeChambeau, who, he drove like a 400-yard drive or something like that across across a lake at, like in, a major the other year. And it just, everyone's like, wow, like this is where we're at now. Is that, actually terrifying. Like, this man has a club in his hand. Is this okay?
We've just given him a weapon.
But he always offsets it with a flat cap. So I don't, is it?
Oh, that's probably all right.
Cool. So that's the physical side of golf and going to play golf and real life golf. And we'll come back to that at the end because I do want to kind of have a bit of a comparison between video games, which is what we're here to discuss, and real life golf. So video game golf then, there's, I would say it's probably one of the widest distributed sports. Well, yeah, amongst others like football and things, that is on video game consoles. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but there seems to be a lot of golf games like over the years.
Yeah, I think there have been, certainly historically, and I do wonder if, for all we're saying about the physical side of things and the scale, I guess, of a golf course, I think ultimately the mechanics are simple enough to translate well, which probably helps it. And yeah, I could see the appeal in trying to convert it to a video game.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Rich. I think that the kind of mechanics of golf and the kind of simplicity of it altogether probably makes it something quite easy to program ultimately. And because it is such a wide-ranging sport, like it's kind of popular everywhere. There's no, I can't think of any kind of major distribution area for something like video games where golf isn't a significantly popular sport.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No. Yeah. So with that in mind then, I think that we're going to have a little look at games today, really, that certainly for me, you wouldn't necessarily say they are the most sim style of golf.
I mean, mine isn't.
We'll get to yours, but I think that but that for me personally, I think that what Paddy's going to go through his games he's going to review, that is they are golf games technically at the core, but they have really nice fluffiness around them, which actually can attract more people to them. Without further ado, then Paddy, do you want to talk about Mario Golf? And is it so you're going to do Mario Golf the Toadstool tour? Is that the GameCube one? And you go for it.
In a complete juxtaposition to my kind of genuine involvement in golf and enjoyment of the sport itself, I am going to talk about two games that allow you to play golf with cuddly, bright cartoon characters. I think I mentioned last time I was on the pod that I think calling myself a gamer would be a stretch at any point in my life, really. But one thing that I have always gone back to is Nintendo. There is something between me and Nintendo that I can't quite put my finger on, but I just really enjoy a lot of what they put out. And yeah, the first one I'm going to talk about is Toadstool Tour, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, which came out 2003, 2004 for the GameCube. Yeah. Which, I mean, the GameCube might still be my pinnacle of Nintendo gaming.
Really?
I don't think I had a bad game for the GameCube.
Wow. Did you have any games for the game? Is that what you just had this one game, you're like, I didn't have a bad one.
We peaked.
100% hit record.
I think it is that kind of thing that, and I think I mentioned this last time as well, is that what I tend to like from a game is can I boot it up and then be playing within a minute or two?
Yeah.
I don't need to go through a load of rigmarole to set things up, and can I just be in the game and doing what I want to do in a couple of minutes? And I think GameCube was really good at that. It took you in with the kind of iconic music, and then it usually just gave you a start menu, and then bang, you're in, and you can play the game whatever you want to do on it. And Toadstool Tour, I think, was a really, really good example of that kind of game for me, where it took, kind of like we mentioned there, what is a very, very simple mechanic. It's a golf game. It chucks in a bunch of Mario and Nintendo characters, lets you play as them, and then you go out and play holes of golf, some of which are based on kind of other Nintendo games. A lot of them just are kind of golf holes that you have to traverse. And I think there was a real kind of like golden period around this time on the GameCube for me, where you had kind of Mario Soccer, you had golf, you had tennis. So you had all these golf games, all these sports games that were Nintendo based and just incredibly easy to get involved with. And yeah, I don't know. It was that simplicity, I think, that I just massively enjoyed. It was great for multiplayer. It was really nice for single player. It was really easy and relaxing. I don't want massive amounts of challenge from my video games, to be completely honest with you, and that was kind of perfect for me.
This is why we have you on, Paddy, because like, I want the most simple video games ever. Like, it sounds great to me. Mario and golf, perfect. Like, as in, what would you want?
Yeah, it was. I think that is what drew me to it so much, was that it allowed me to. I suppose this is going to link into what we'll talk about later, which is that kind of, is golf maybe more enjoyable as a video game than an actual experience in real life? It allows you to be very, very good at something which is actually inherently difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the whole time you get to play as Yoshi. So
bonus points.
Yeah. So and on the Mario Golf, then I've got to be honest. Like I'm aware that it's meant to be a very good, fun game. I've never really played Mario Golf because I'd never really had access to Mario Golf. I now have. I can play the N64 version on my Switch Online, which I intend to do at some point. I think that I probably end up skipping the Nintendo Golf experience of Mario straight into the Wii Golf situation, where it obviously became a bit more realistic and things. So what's the newest Mario Golf called? What's that like, Paddy? Is it, because you said you had that on the Switch, didn't you? Is it Super Rush or something?
Yeah, Super Rush. Yeah, I downloaded that while I think it was when it was just after Kit had been born, because I think it came out 2021, and I didn't get around to getting it at the time. But just after Kit was born, I found myself. Franzi would go to bed to actually get some sleep, and if Kit had fallen asleep and he was kind of upstairs with me, I would kind of throw something easy on the Switch every now and again. And I figured, since I loved Mario Golf so much, Toadstool Tour, that I would give Super Rush a go. Ultimately, it's kind of the same in its own little way, in that, it allows you to play golf in a kind of massively simplified version, with that kind of Nintendo fun, cutesy stuff kind of around it. But I think my biggest issue with Super Rush is that I feel like what they took was an incredibly simple and accessible game and needlessly complicated it with all these kind of new mechanics. And look, obviously, what Nintendo are trying to do is say, like, hey, look, this is how much we've advanced, and we've got all these new ideas and all these new mechanics that we can throw in there because of our the processing power that we've got now and everything. And we don't just want to reproduce the same game, because then people might get mad about spending however much it is, like 50, 60 quid, whatever they're asking for these games.
Yeah.
On what is essentially just a point and click golf game. But all this kind of you take your shot and then you run to where the ball is and you're racing against someone. And the courses have kind of like, they've almost become like kind of Mario Kart style, where, you can go off a cliff and then you have to go down to the bottom of the cliff to play the shot, but then it has to go back up to the top, but you can use the wind turbines to get the ball back up. And I don't know, it took something that I really enjoyed for its simplicity and muddled it completely through way too much stuff in there. And I think I would like it if you could simply just play like a kind of classic version of the game, but as far as I'm aware, and I suppose I haven't picked it up for a little while, it doesn't give you that option. You don't have that option to kind of play just the basic format of Mario Golf.
Are they are both games a 3-click swing? That is, so you don't use do you use the joystick, or is it like a power bar that you press a button, power up, and
both are the power bar.
Right, okay. I was just interested just because I know that there seems to be probably a clear divide, I'd say, in the games that you can have. I remember that the very first game I had, the golf game that I had was, it was called like Pro Sports. It was like a Tom Lehman PC game. And it was like the mid-90s. And it had this thing called True Swing, where you grab the mouse and you actually, like, you shove the mouse forward on the mouse pad, like you were swinging the club.
Oh.
And I loved that. But it was just, but I also found it very, like, it was not simple as well. And it's almost, I was just wondering if Mario Golf had kept that simplicity in both versions. It sounded like, I didn't know whether or not the Switch one had maybe become a motion one or not, with it being complicated, or...
No, and I think that would have taken more marks off for me. Kind of like bringing kind of the motion control into it again. It's like if I want that kind of thing, then I'll go to the more kind of like Wii Sports style stuff. You know, I'll go to something that I deem kind of like a motion control game. But yeah, as far as I can remember, I'm really hoping I'm not massively misremembering this, but I feel like I would remember. No, it's that kind of 3-click power bar style. And I remember on Toadstool Tour as well, you could like really affect the ball in flight. So you could kind of, you know, add kind of backspin or forespin to it, you know, to change the ball when it landed.
Yeah.
And I think they've taken that away. I'm not sure if you can really do that on the game currently, or maybe it's something that gets added later. But yeah, it's I think I was a little bit disappointed. I do understand why they've thrown so much into it, because again, you know, if you're going to charge that much for a game, they've made it kind of almost open world in a sense that you can kind of go anywhere on the course to get to the final point of the hole. But for me, it was just overly complicated and really messy. It wasn't a particularly enjoyable game to play, I found.
All right, and that feels like a bit of a killer, really, for what we've been talking about in terms of golf video games seem to be relaxing and enjoyable.
I think that's a totally fair point. I think there's a certain point you get to in the game, which is kind of where I almost gave up on it. Really, I really haven't gone back to it much since then. Was where I just found myself like, not enjoying playing it. I was like, this is just too kind of needly and pointless. It really got to me. I was like, right, it's not really why I wanted to play this game in the first place. So yeah.
So it sounds like then, I mean, if you were going to give arbitrary scores to those games and recommendations, then what would you say for either of those? Which one? I mean, it's clear which one you would recommend, but, you know, by how much?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Toadstool Tour, I think you're probably kind of adding some nostalgia glasses onto this as well, which I completely understand. But I would go for a kind of, let's go with 8 out of 10. It's more than enjoyable. It's a game that I would keep going back to constantly. It's nothing special. Like it's never going to get close to a 10 because there's nothing about it that is massively groundbreaking in any way. But for me, it kind of jumps into that point of like, I absolutely loved playing that game. Kind of maybe just underneath your kind of Mario Karts and Smash Brothers kind of multiplayer games.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved kind of the simplicity and ease of access to Toadstool Tour. Compare then to Super Rush, which I would probably give, I don't know, I'll give it a 5, in the sense that I appreciate what they've done to update it and the fact that they haven't just gone and made a complete clone of the old game and charged, 60 quid for it. But I think I would have almost preferred them to half the price of the game and just give me a kind of crisper, nicer looking, slightly more advanced version of Toadstool Tour. That would be my kind of perfect modern version.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think that kind of sits probably in line with a lot of popular sort of, I guess, feeling about these games. Anyway, whenever I hear or read, probably what I hear and read will direct me towards that. But, in terms of retro gaming and stuff, like a lot of people say Mario Golf back in the day was amazing, whereas I've never heard anybody even talk about, the Super Rush, as in once ever. I know quite a few people have got Switches, and I don't know anyone that owns it. You're the only person that I know that owns it. So, and I've not heard amazing things about it. So I think that probably sits in line with that, really.
I think maybe the world has just moved away from kind of more cartoony sports games. I think what people want out of sports games now is they do want a bit more kind of realistic reflection. They want to kind of feel like, no, I'm doing this for real. You know, if you look at how, I mean, you know, we all know a lot of people who get really into Madden, for example. You know, people really want that kind of like absolute realism in the game. That I don't think there's much call now for what Nintendo were doing in the 2000s with the GameCube and, you know, 90s with the Game Boy and stuff like that. It's not really what they're after.
That segues really well into the games that I'm going to be talking about, which are Everybody's Golf, and you made the point before actually about how, funnily enough, golf is quite a singular sport. That is so there is the Live Golf Tour now, which is kind of like challenging the norms of the PGA, and which is like
Sure,
but that's a Saudi backed new tour that basically they've kind of brought in the idea of kind of having that sugar rush, like really fast, like they've got a party hole, you know, you've got teams as well, so it's like a team golf event. So they're trying to take everything that golf doesn't have and try and shove it in there.
They're doing a Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
They're ruining it. Actually, just to jump in, Fazz, just on that point, because I feel like this might be something that Rich might be interested in, and maybe other people that are listening that aren't quite into golf, but maybe, you know, are interested in the whole kind of Live PGA split. Have either of you guys watched Full Swing on Netflix,
Yes.
the golf documentary?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. No.
I would recommend, Rich, giving it a go. It's a little cookie cutter at times. It's not like hard hitting, but there's a couple of episodes that get into the split in the game, which is really interesting.
Okay.
But also the kind of like the golfers who not everyone's heard about, the ones who kind of sit further down the rankings and what life's like for them as professional golfers. I really would recommend giving it a go if you have any interest in kind of getting into golf a little bit more, because I think, you know, as I mentioned, as Faz just mentioned, that kind of individuality of golf can be hard to break down at times. But if you get to know the players, I know that Franzi, for example, after we watched it, she's massively more into golf now because she has a couple of players that she wants to keep up on and see how they're doing.
Yeah,
because of the documentary. So yeah, I suppose it did its job in that sense.
Yeah, they really they read the tea leaves really well there, and got lucky with the fact that there was going to be this massive schism in golf all of a sudden that really shook it to its foundation, and it still continues to. And it was like, oh, we've actually got a really pertinent, like, interesting documentary here that we're just going to drop on Netflix, and it's like, oh shit, this is, you know, like,
definitely sounds timely.
Yeah, it's on the edge of your seat, kind of popcorn, kind of golf.
Absolutely.
Look, see, this is why we bring Paddy on. He just drops that, reviews
bombs.
of
Knowledge bombs everywhere.
TV shows, knowledge bombs. That's the Live Golf will get those in next. That is. So the point I was coming on to was, so is that it's kind of, you've got that individuality in golf, and funnily enough, that Everybody's Golf is called Everybody's Golf everywhere except for the USA, where it's called Hot Shots Golf.
Really?
And because as we spoke about previously, with certain things being named or certain games released in certain markets, they clearly made the decision to say that actually not everybody's friendly in golf in America. Like, as in, it's not everybody's golf. It's just that person who wants to play golf and crush the other person who's playing golf.
I mean, let's be fair. Everybody's golf sounds pretty communist.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly what it is. Like,
you got to be careful with this stuff.
Well, when you realise that most of the way through the game, Everybody's Golf is presented in rainbow writing, like as in like, and this isn't just now. This is like back in 2005, 1997. The first games came out. It is super inclusive. Like, your teeth hurt playing this game. Like, there are points where it's just constantly telling you how well you've done and how nice everything is. And at the end of any sort of playing of the game, there are little FMV sequences that play where it's like a raindrop dropping off a leaf, and it's like, see you next time, and you're like, what?
Sounds chill.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's a beautiful experience, but it's very hippie. Like, I think Paddy's right. I think it's kind of like, it is. I've never seen anything like it in I guess a competitive sports game. It is the most that I've seen where it's just like, oh, let's all hold hands at the end. It's just, and really sit in a circle and think about how great everything is.
But ultimately, one person won.
Who makes it, Fazz? Who's the company?
They're called. I think they're called Clap Hands. Like, as in so. And funnily enough, and actually, what I would have thought is the reverse. But I guess your point's really like about. Maybe the world wants proper simulation sports games nowadays. So Everybody's Golf first came out in 1997 on the PlayStation, and it's actually been a bit of a PlayStation stalwart for about 20 years. But the last iteration of Everybody's Golf / Hot Shots was, I think, PS4 in 2017. So it's not been around for a while. It's been like 7 years it's not been around for. So it's kind of out, if you will. Clap Hands, I think they released something for the Meta Quest recently, like a derivative, but it wasn't called Everybody's Golf or Hot Shots Golf. So yeah, but it had a 20-year run, and it was solely PlayStation as well. It never branched out, and that's probably what killed it as well. It never really, like an exclusive golf game, which at its heart is an arcade game, which is kind of an arcade sort of anime. But that probably sounds like it. I think it does a bit of a disservice, really, because actually it really ties quite a lot of technical sim golf in there. It just looks like a candy cane, the entire time. So yeah, it has that weird. And I remember in like Tiger Woods golf, and we're not really going to touch much on Tiger Woods golf because we'll probably do that in a future podcast because there's so much to that, I think. But I remember Tiger Woods golf. You would play for money like you would do in real life golf, but then you would use that money to buy like clothing. Whereas in this, you play for clothing, like as in effectively, like as in like that's what you win. Like
so, like the opposite of strip golf.
Yeah. He's literally like, no. Well, like at points where like so the gameplay.
I'm still
modes,
learning about golf.
No,
I'm
it's
learning
fine.
a lot about golf.
No. I think you've got it. So the gameplay modes are that you've got. There's a challenge. You can play stroke play by yourself. And by the way, sorry, these are the PSP versions I'm talking about. So I'm talking about Everybody's Golf 1 and 2 on the PSP from 2005 and 2008. And it's pretty much the same game. I'll kind of go into the details of what the differences are, but very briefly. The sequel is better than the first game for a few more reasons in terms of like content and stuff. But the gameplay is. You have a stroke play that you can play by yourself. There is a multiplayer option, but that's now dead. But that was something that in Hot Shots / Everybody's Golf 2, you could play up to with 16 people, like in multiplayer. Like,
really?
It was almost like an entire tournament. You could play this golf on your PSP. That is on a sort of a wider scale. But I'd say there's probably two main thrusts of the game. There's the challenge mode where you effectively play for other people's clothing, you're you're about to steal your opponent's hat off their head. Like
so that is strip golf.
Yeah. And they're wearing the clothing while you're playing them, so you.
So it's definitely strip golf.
Yeah, you're taking the clothes off their back effectively by beating with a golf.
I need to look up the rules of golf.
Paddy, you're the golfer. Are you naked?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how this is how the Masters works until like 55.
Well, they get a green jacket.
I was going to say that's why you get a jacket at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like,
So you knew that.
Yourself
yeah,
that's the only golf I know.
It used to be that you could pick out someone from the crowd at the end and take their jacket and then
beat the living daylights out of them and take their jacket.
Yeah.
So that's really tickled Rich. But yeah, in terms of like the gameplay part of it, like I said, it does the anime and the, I guess, almost childish nature of the game does mask a really professional technical sim that has wind speeds and spin on the ball and club selection, and it uses all the buttons on the PSP really, really well. So you kind of, when you first pick it up, and I'd never picked up an Everybody's Golf game because of how it looked. Like, I remember it being like, it was a day one game on the PSP, and I remember thinking, why would I get that when I can get Tiger Woods? And actually, what I found was that the first iteration of Tiger Woods on the PSP was a game that was kind of half baked, and there wasn't a lot to it, and it was a weird sort of like, you couldn't play a full round of golf. You couldn't play a full tournament though. You played against other like masters, and then you had to beat these people and go up a ladder, and then eventually kind of got to the point where you're like, oh, you are the best golfer. I never quite got there. Like, Colin Montgomery kept dicking on me, but it was like it wasn't a fully baked game. Whereas this is just purely golf. That is, in you play in tournament mode, and it just how it happens to be that you win a nice side parting. That's the thing that you win, like a haircut, like, and the game.
This just sum up kind of like the Japanese approach to kind of like video gaming and sports, in the sense that golf is huge in Japan. It's so huge, and so many sports are, and they're also kind of like ever progressively getting even better at these sports as well. There's so much kind of focus put into kind of funding in sport in Japan, to the point where they're making this kind of extremely kind of like well thought out, professionally put together golf game that, you know, you can kind of have the full version of even on the PSP. Whereas, you know, the kind of like the EA Sports version is kind of like half baked, and they're like, you can't play the full version because you're on the PSP. And they just can't help themselves but like throw all this kind of anime stuff on top of it, you know, and say like, we have a haircut if you win. Yeah. Like, it's just...
And the characters are like weird, freaky bobbleheads, and then you get a caddy who is like almost like your commentator, but like a bit like your sort of champion for you, but that you can pick your caddy, but all it really is the commentating voice. But also, like, they have their own kind of personalities as well, where it's a bit like they'll probably be, you know, like, they tend to be female, and they tend to be like, I guess what you call for an anime, quite attractive, with like, you know, and what, quite passive aggressive sexually towards you as well. Like, almost like, it felt that way to me anyway. Like, as in, you know, I was like,
yeah, it sounds like a Japanese.
It was like bob on for like sort of like that Japanese sort of, you know, anime sort of thing. But yeah, you know, and I really found myself enjoying both the challenge and also, I would say, the actual content of the game. It just, the problem is it took a long time to unlock the content. Like, it felt like it was hiding behind a lack of content, and just like the longevity was kind of forced upon you by, I guess, really, play this course again, but you'll win a shoe this time. Play this course again, you'll win the other shoe. And it's just, and it's like, yeah, it just felt like there wasn't a lot there, and you had to play the same courses over and over again. The best part of the game, and this goes for the sequel as well, is there is a version in the first game where you just get one shot or one putt in the first game to get to, and they have various different target holes on a green. So you could get like 10 points for the easy putt, 20 points for the harder putt, and then 30 points for the extreme putt. And then you have to get a certain number of points before you then get I guess the reward is a cup, and again, I don't know, a fucking skirt or something. And it's like, and they have that in the first game for the putting, but then in the second game, they advance that up to a one-shot iron shot. So you're playing, so there's a lot more variance to what could happen in that circumstance. And that's really good. So that works really well. And yeah, it's one of those things that I really enjoyed playing I really enjoyed the golf aspect of it. I just didn't enjoy the weird
everything
else, like, you know, being kind of almost like clothed in sheep's wool, like, as in lovely, fluffy, candy floss sheep's wool that I didn't really need. But I guess that kind of like gives it its different IP from Tiger Woods as well. So it just didn't, you know, and it was a 3-click swing as well. So it was that old sort of fashioned version of, you know, you click it once to start your power bar, click it again to finish your power bar, etc. So it wasn't a swing on the nubbin situation. But yeah, so it was really pleasant. Both games were really pleasant. And I'd say the second version, there's a bit more content to it, and there was it was quicker to unlock things as well, but it was the exact same game. Like, as in graphically, in 3 years, it hadn't moved on. Like, as in, they were quite happy with what they'd done. They still had the weird FMV sequences in there where it was like, oh, we love you, you know, well done you, here's a leaf. And, you know what I mean? Here's a cloud. So, you know, there was still that there. So, yeah, it felt like, I would say, both games, solid 7 out of 10, both of them. And I'd say, you know, it's almost a bit like, the second game, whilst probably had a little bit more to it, was still very much the same game. And weird enough, I've not played the 2010 version of Tiger Woods on the PSP, but I've heard that's like really, really good. But I would play these massively over the 2005, 2006, 2007's Tiger Woods I had on PSP. Like, as in, they were vastly better golf games. Even if I did feel like, I don't know, I felt like they were a bit inside my t-shirt. Like, you know, like, I don't know, it just felt like it felt like they were a bit close to me. Like,
it almost sounds to me like the positive reinforcement is hewing very close to that line where it just becomes patronising once you're over a certain age.
Yeah. It is, like, as in, yeah, the characters are very much like children. Like, and you're like, you know, but they're children, but you're playing a very serious golf game behind that.
But hey, look, Fazz, you said this was like what the last iteration was, what, 2017?
Yes, yeah, on the PS4, yeah.
So look, you know, I mean, 2016, there's Brexit, Trump being elected, the world becomes more and more divided, and everybody's golf leaves us.
Yeah,
you know, leaves us in this kind of divide. Maybe it's time now that we need it more than ever for its uber positivity and saccharine sweet imagery. Maybe it's time to play golf for haircuts again.
Yeah, bring back the love.
Yeah, no, it's golf for hair in 2024 definitely feels like, you know, a slogan that we should be rolling out for some sort of political party, probably. So we're going to take a quick break now, and then when we come back, Rich will go through his golf game, which is definitely a normal golf game. All right, Rich, your turn.
Right.
Golf me.
Time
golf
to,
us.
to take a swing or something.
Yeah, take a swig.
Right, a swig.
Whatever you're selling.
So I'm very, very pleased that Paddy covered the latest Mario Golf and touched on this whole notion of rushing around a golf course. Because I'm going to be talking about Ninja Golf on the Atari 7800. So that is exactly the reaction I was hoping for. Mm-hmm. This came out around 1990, and you are greeted with a title screen. Once you're past that, you've chosen your difficulty level. Oh yes, you are given a spiel on a nice ornate scroll next to a big dragon, where after years of training, you have to pass the final test, which is 9 holes of Ninja Golf. And basically, the short version of this review is box art 10 out of 10, sound effects and music 2 out of 10. So, like the
solid,
yeah, the gameplay itself is really weirdly good fun, and I could imagine that well, one of the last notes I've got here in my awful scrawl is basically, wouldn't this be great if they remade it? And I could imagine that if you took elements, not the whole thing from what Paddy was saying, of Super Rush, and fused it with this, I think you could be onto something. So the idea is, you are a ninja on a golf course.
In my dreams every night.
Exactly. You pick a direction of your swing on this little mini map that's at the bottom of the screen, and above it is like a kind of side-on view of you on the golf course. Took me ages to realise, but you can set the power of the swing. So you have this tiny little dot coming out from you in a straight line in the direction you're pointing the swing. And that's your power meter. So it's a timed button press.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And that this dot will like reset back to the tee and then go out from you again for the full like length of the swing you can have.
Yeah.
Or the shot you can have rather, and it'll come back. So you have this little risk reward thing. So you can try and go for a bigger swing, but it's more likely that you overshoot and it ends up being a really short shot, right? That is as far as the golfing mechanics go.
Yeah.
So you swing, you hit the ball goes somewhere, and then your little ninja, after immediately belting the ball, goes sprinting off after it, and on the way you have to defeat other ninjas who are attacking you on the course. You have to jump over moles, you have to avoid frogs if you're in the rough, you have to avoid sharks if you end up going through the water, snakes if you're in a bunker. And you can pick up power-ups on the way, like you can top up your health, you can get a shield, you can get extra throwing stars, like you have to use throwing stars on these things, or kick them in the face. And then you get to your ball, and everything calms down. You have a moment of calm. You are not attacked by anything. You line up your next shot. You swing again, and then it all kicks off again, and you have to get to the ball again. And it just goes like that until you get to the green, where, as I understand it, unlike real golf, you are assaulted by a massive fire-breathing dragon, and you have to throw ninja stars in a kind of... The camera shifts to a sort of over-the-shoulder view, and you just have to avoid these fireballs and hit the dragon a certain number of times. Then the dragon clears off somewhere, and you move on to the next hole. And that's the game. That is the entire game. You do 9 holes of that, and it gets weirdly difficult.
It sounds difficult.
Really intense, like to the extent that, because the hardest difficulty level was kamikaze, and I went in, and you know what,
fully
like
acceptable.
The moments where you are lining up your shot and taking your swing end up becoming like these weirdly like meditative little oases of calm. And then you are like viciously assaulted straight off the bat, and it's just this frantic rush to like keep things off you while still progressing forward in this like side-scrolling beat 'em up.
It's like in real life, like the stewards hold up paddles that say like quiet when people are taking their shots. It's like I imagine someone's doing that, and all the snakes and frogs are just
they
like,
just
well,
wait.
Yeah,
no, and then
no,
they're
fucking
down,
have
and
him.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of neat little tricks as well. So like they'll use, I say a couple of neat. There's one neat little trick where they will use the background color, or basically the background color of the kind of area that you're in, for an occasional ninja on the harder difficulty. So you effectively have to fight like an invisible ninja in among the crowd,
ninja,
and all that kind of stuff. And it like there's a bunch of little things like that sound really stupid to talk about.
This all sounds fine.
But then you sit and play it, and it's like, actually, this is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
I am one of those people who, you know, as we've said already, you know, recently arcade sports games have, you know, seemingly disappeared. You know, you can get the occasional one pops up or here or there, but by and large they don't seem to be anywhere near as prevalent as they were. And I really miss them. I do. I have a real soft spot for big, dumb, stupid, incredibly ridiculous, fun arcade sports games, and this feels to me like it's missed its opportunity, and it needs to be dragged out of a cupboard, spruced up, and, you know, popped on a store for you know, a budget price. Away you go. And I think somebody would do great work with it, because I think it came out about a year before the Atari 7800 got discontinued.
Okay.
So its time in the sun was all too brief. And so I could imagine that you know, there's room in this world for a revamped Ninja Golf.
Is this on any of the collections?
Yes. So this was on my Atari 50 collection.
Cool.
So looked great. Played nice and snappy. Didn't sound great. The sound was still atrocious, but you know, them's the breaks. But yeah, so it's reasonably accessible. It's much more accessible now than it would have been.
Yeah.
And you know, Atari is starting to make moves again on the hardware market and all that kind of stuff. So you never know. Maybe I think it possibly got a cartridge reissue, or might be, you know, in the offing for one. So you never know. Maybe I'll get my wish.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, weirdly enjoyed it. Obviously, it's got naffle to do with actual golf, but still, you know. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, as in, it sounds. Go on, Paddy.
I had two thoughts. One of in kind of reference to what Rich just said. The first one, it sounds wonderfully kind of like late 1980s, early 1990s culturally inappropriate. Absolutely love that.
Yep.
Throwing ninja stars, fighting a dragon on the green, having a mission called Kamikaze.
Yeah,
love it.
I'm really pleased it didn't have voice acting, because it would only have been terribly racist.
my second thought, kind of more on what Rich was saying there, was that all I could imagine in my mind was like this, like, you know, really kind of passionate, hardworking kind of game designer going into Atari and be like, right, I've got this game. It's basically done. You're a ninja. You have to get through this final mode of your training before you get to like this kamikaze mission, which, you know, it's so crazy, it's so difficult, and you've got to fight all these different enemies and blah 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 blah. And there's just this one kind of, you know, CEO of the company who's like, yeah, I like it. You know what's really in right now? Golf games.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we could make this also a golf game?
It's like that episode of The Thick of It, where is it like they're all sat in a circle and they go, and then they have to say "and ho" at the end.
Oh,
of it.
yeah.
And someone just sort of goes,
golf.
Yeah,
and ho.
yeah. I was thinking a bit more like, everyone was a bit more like, oh, there's a ninja game and golf. That's it.
I mean, at any rate, like, however it came about, I'm so very glad it did. And if you leave this episode and do one thing, please just Google the box art, because in terms of being able to know exactly what the game is about from one image.
Yeah, I think I know it quite well, the box art, actually.
It's the one thing that any review of this game that I've ever come across has mentioned the box art. I'm going to do it again. Like, it is just almost perfect.
Don't think that Live Golf...
I've just Googled it now. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't think that Live Golf won't put a fire-breathing dragon on a green.
Right.
Like, you know, as long as he's pissed. Like, you know.
But I guess this is kind of what I'm angling at, right? Because from what you're saying about Live Golf, they're doing things a little bit differently anyway. As far as I'm aware, and I could very easily be wrong, they haven't had like a kind of official game adaptation of what they do yet. So they go do that, and then as a mini game... You have an homage to Ninja Golf. That's the niche it'll sit in really nicely. Like, that's where that sits.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what I mean. I think there is a way we can bring Ninja Golf back to the people.
Yeah. I'm all for it. That sounds amazing.
Yep. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Wow.
And I will fight anybody on a golf course.
I'll fight someone. Like, you know, I'll fight any frog in the rough. For like a 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna throw this out there, Rich, as well. Just kind of looking at this box art again. That is not a samurai sword, is it? Like,
no,
that's not
no.
a ninja. That's like a pirate's cutlass.
Yeah.
They were really in, weren't they? Like,
they were, and I would not be surprised if there was a moment where they were like, could we work pirates in as well? You know, we have to go through the water, you're fighting sharks at one point, we could put pirates in as well.
The Meg 3 Ninja Golf. But there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Like, and this is the thing, like, as an idea, and the I won't lie, like, the gameplay itself, it shows its age. Of course it does. How could it not? The reason I've given it 9 out of 10, right, is just because I am so infatuated with the idea of it. Like, it's such a good idea. And it balls
out.
Of course it is.
Balls
yeah,
out.
and like the more you sit and the more you talk about it, the more stuff like the pirate thing comes up. You know, like, you can just keep bolting stuff on, and oh my days, it writes itself, you know? Like, such a good idea. Need it back in my life.
I feel like it really... I think... Well, I'm trying to get with this sentence nowhere, it seems. The reason it works is because golf probably would be seen as quite a mundane sport. Like, do you know what I mean? That is,
well, especially if you're playing a game adaptation in 1990.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous, you know, middle white class sort of sport on it. So almost like, well, you know, wouldn't it be funny if we send it up with ninjas and stuff, and therefore it works. And it's just like, you know, for golf, but at the same time it works because of that that bland sort of, like, you know, bottom base of biscuit. Yeah, and on top you lump just some nice ninjas meringue. Like,
yeah, that's exactly it. And there is just, I'm kind of fascinated with trying to find out, you know, how the idea came about a bit more. And I probably should have, in order to do some actual research and talk with any degree of authority at this bit. But I kind of, on the flip side, like not knowing. And that's why I didn't. Yeah. Because I like the idea that it could have been a satire of golf. It could have been somebody just really like ninjas. It could have been an insane team networking session where they just workshopped an idea and this is what fell out the other end. I like not knowing because the idea is so insane. in such a very, very good way.
I want it to be true that like they were on a train and they were just passing past the golf course and they were like, "Hey Jeff, have you seen that ninja plane out there?"
Yeah. There could have been an altercation. You know, I any of that.
No, that's
all
not a
of
ninja.
That,
It's a pirate. It's a pirate.
Yeah.
Right. So, just to round off the conversation, then, I mean, you know, and I'm really glad that the best golf game that I've scored today is Ninja Golf.
I mean, I would have fudged that score no end if I had to. I would have given it 10 out of 10 if I needed to.
Just to kind of round out the conversation then, and not to put pressure on you, Paddy, but, you know, being the most experienced at playing golf. I used to dabble when I was younger and kind of did a little bit of sort of, you know, a little bit of golf school and stuff. But, you know, I always, I wasn't too bad, but I didn't have enough power really to kind of get around the golf course. I used to just hit it like, you know, my drivers would go like 20 yards. Like, as in it was straight, it just would go 20 yards. So not to put any pressure on you, but what's your feeling on like playing golf versus, you know, playing video game golf? What do you think your preference is, especially since you've started picking the clubs back up again?
Yeah, it's you know what, I've ever since you kind of raised the question to me, kind of prepping for the pod, I've kind of mulled over it, and I don't think I have a really solid answer. I do really enjoy playing golf. There is something about it that is very much enjoyable. Kind of, you know, you're putting away like a big section of the day just to kind of, you're essentially, I mean, you know, get Mark Twain about it, you're essentially going for a walk that is spoiled by the sport itself. And golf courses do tend to be quite enjoyable places to walk around. You know, and in the same vein, like I mentioned before, I enjoy the simplicity of something like Mario Golf for the GameCube. So I'm not maybe the best one to ask about playing like kind of full immersive version of golf versus playing the real thing, because I think ultimately the person that I am, I'll always pick playing the real thing. You know, I go and do that because I find that quite enjoyable. And I like the kind of more physical challenge, I suppose, as opposed to the more maybe kind of dexterous skill-based challenge. You know, so I think I'd plump for going to play. Okay. But I think given that I haven't played many in-depth kind of more professional golf games, then maybe I'm not best to answer.
You know, well, I've played more what do we just call them there, professional video golf games than I'd say arcade golf games, which is maybe why everybody's golf Hot Shots was a real sort of breath of fresh air, because I was like, I've most recently I have played the most recent EA Sports, the one that was available on Game Pass, is it Road to the Masters, I think it is, and you know, and I remember back in 2015 when Tiger Woods, like, kind of the license had run out and they brought out Rory McIlroy, and it was shit. Like, as in, they did a really bad job of it, and I think they really struggled to like simulate perfectly how well a golf game can play compared to real life, and it's almost like the better ones are the more arcadey ones. The more realistic one that I've enjoyed the most recently, and I play with Nath, who's been on the podcast before, and he listens regularly. And you know, we'll play, is it the PGA, the golf club? Sorry, that is the golf club, but from 2019, and the mechanics on that are really, really good. But it doesn't look, it's starting to look a little bit dated now. You know, it's sort of 5-6 years old. But I go back to that one for my most up-to-date realistic golf, and it feels the most like golf when I've played golf before. And I'm almost the opposite in a way, Paddy, which, you know, you would expect probably from me. Like, as in, you know, I like to sit inside and I like my golf rounds to be very quick, and I like to not be in the rough, hacking away, pissed off at myself. Like, you know, so I don't want it to sound glib, because a lot of people put a lot of effort in going to play golf, and also for people to make golf courses look absolutely incredible and be amazing arenas to be in. But there's also something to be said, I think, for just sitting in your front room, having a quick 1 hour, 18 holes, that you are fully in control of whilst being dry with a cup of coffee. For me personally, so I think I would sit on the side of video games, golf video games being my favourite. But I do, as we spoke about at length at the start of the pod, I do love watching golf. I'd just rather not be playing it, I think, in person. So, Rich, I'm interested to hear what you think, because coming from someone that doesn't have any, has Paddy swayed you at all?
No, he has, to a degree. Like, I definitely feel, I know it won't sound like it, but I do genuinely have more of an appreciation of the sort of physical side of the game than I did when we started this, simply because it never really occurred to me. And I was mulling it over when you originally asked, and the first sort of sport that came to mind that I would rather play a game of rather than do in real life is basically any kind of motorsport. Mm-hmm. Like, I fucking hate driving, right? Which, considering I wanted to be a rally driver when I was a kid, is a little bit of a switch. But like any kind of racing game, sure. Me in golf games, I have played so few like sim ones as well. My Ninja Golf review was nearly What the Golf instead, which is more like a puzzle game almost, where it basically uses golf as a jumping off point for as many different ludicrous variations of that mechanic in the game.
Yeah.
You choose a direction, you push a button to set your power and all that kind of stuff as it can. The review was nearly Golf Monday, which is on Pico 8, and you can play quote unquote normal golf, or you can just steal a golf cart and do donuts, or you can go and hit somebody else's ball and people are just wandering around and they're like, oh, you, and all that kind of stuff. Like, basically, when it comes to me in video games,
real golf as well, Rich.
people really dig it when you do that.
I bet. And like, when it comes to me in golf games, it's almost like the sim side of things doesn't even factor into it. And yet arcade versions of golf and surreal versions of golf, I do have a little bit, like, I was looking at the various games I could play and could have talked about. I was like, actually, like, there's a few of them knocking around. It's not like I've shied away from it. Yeah. Toadstool Tour is another good example. And Paddy's absolutely right. That kind of era of Mario sports games, Mario Tennis being the other prime example. I've never been able to get on with tennis, and God knows I've tried. But, like, again, Mario Tennis, I would play that for hours.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm definitely on the side of video games. But all that said, Paddy has definitely given me a newfound appreciation for, the actual difficulty of the mechanics. And all it took was just sitting down and actually thinking about it for a little while. Which I guess goes to show how little I had previously thought about it.
I've sat and thought about golf.
Well, if we've got any people that have made it, what are we on, hour and 20, give or take. So if you've made it this far through and you've never golfed before, like me, basically, aside from my 2 hours at the rec, like, well done.
Take a cutlass with you. Paddy, you got any closing thoughts before we get out of here? You're like no.
Bring back that communist anime golf game. I'll give it a go,
dude. Well, it's there. As in, you can just go and pick it up on. You got PlayStation 3? Did you say?
No. Actually, I do have a PlayStation 3 downstairs. I do. Maybe I can pick it up for that.
Yeah, go for it. That is in, but in Switzerland it'll definitely everybody's golf. Whereas in, it won't be hot shots. I don't think so. Right, cool. Thank you very much for your time, Paddy. It's been awesome as usual. So, we'll probably, do golf again at some point. And I would like to get some Tiger Woods chat in there at some point in the future as well. So, but yeah, and we really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much. I'm sure I can count on you guys to join me for a Swiss football podcast sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. The Servette Cup winners, right? Won the cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Swiss Cup winners.
Yeah.
Jordan Shaqiri just retired from the national team, so we can chat about that as well.
Yeah. Well, there'll be hours of content on that. I do love Shaq, to be fair. Like, yeah, bless him.
I was going to say, you're a Liverpool fan. You must love the guy.
Yeah, of course I do, yeah. Right, cool. So until next time, guys, thanks very much.
Cheers.
Bye.